Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Red Donkey Projections. My name is Lucas, and I have Eric here as always.
Hey guys.
And today we are doing a special collab with our friend Ethan Ablagi. He has his own YouTube channel. I'll leave a link in the description.
Thank you very much.
So, what are we discussing today? Today we'll be discussing 2020 being a blue wave year, or also known as a clean sweep, in quotes. What that means is the Democrats will we'll have a trifecta. We will have a Democratic trifecta starting in 2021 because we do project that the Democrats or Joe Biden will win the presidency, the Democrats will take control of the Senate, and the Democrats will take control of the House. We'll be taking a look at all three of these races and also seeing the impact of a Democratic trifecta. And with that being said, let's get right into it. All right, Eric, why don't you start off by discussing the presidential election? I'll quickly plot in our predictions at the moment.
Yeah. So we do think that Joe Biden is going to win the election, and we do think that he will win the election in by quite a bit of electoral votes comparing to Donald Trump. He is taking a lot of the battleground states such as Arizona, Florida, North Carolina, Wisconsin, and New Hampshire and Nevada, and a lot of states that are very, very much swing states. And that is looking good. That is looking good for Joe Biden. And when Lucas plots out the whole entire map, we will see that Joe Biden actually is winning like 334 electoral votes.
Yeah, he's taking a lot of these votes in. And this is going to be, I believe, the biggest victory since Barack Obama in 2008, which was a complete landslide. But that year really wasn't an expected year for a Republican to win due to George W. Bush not really handling the economy that well, and the economy being complete garbage at that time. So that was pretty much expected. So this is 334. This would be the biggest landslide election since 2012. We characterize a landslide as being over 300. Joe Biden's well over that margin of 300. Now, why is this happening? One, Trump's disapproval rating. It's very, very low. Trump's approval rating is very low right now. His disapproval is very high. We were seeing good numbers for him in like February. His approval rating was pretty good. That has since dropped due to two main factors: coronavirus. His handling the Black Lives Matter protest has been universally seen as not good. And finally, I actually saw on the news today the economy is not doing that well right now. The recovery seems to have been hit a bit. So the economy is not looking good. Ethan, is there anything else you want to discuss about this?
Sure. We also look at comparing the 2020 to 2016 map. There are a lot of very conservative states that have traditionally gone Republican for quite a while that we are now thinking could be a lot closer than they were previously, like Montana, Missouri, Mississippi, South Carolina. These states we've had them marked as likely Republican, and you think about how red they've been in some previous elections, and it just does come to show how much trouble Trump is in, because he is struggling to hold on to even the reddest of red states at this time. And we also look at states that may have been a little bit closer in 2016, like Iowa and Ohio, which both went to Trump by about 9 points. And both of them are only very narrowly currently going to him in the polls, which does come to show the huge swing that has gone from Trump back over to Biden in the presidential polls.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. And a lot of states Biden is doing very well in the polls right now. Florida, for example. We don't look only at the polls, but we look at other factors too. And in Florida, we're seeing DeSantis' coronavirus handling being universally panned for how he's been handling it. Lots of deaths in the state of Florida, not looking well there.
I made a video on this. You can go check it out if you want a deep description of what's going on there.
And it was with Ethan too. So even though these three states are important, Joe Biden has other paths to victory as well. Taking the state of Florida, let's say Biden somehow loses Wisconsin, loses Pennsylvania, he still wins with Florida, and that's definitely going to be an issue for the Trump campaign. And because Michigan right now does really look like it will be going for Joe Biden. So this is not a very good look for Donald Trump, and that's why we are projecting that Biden will carry the 2020 presidential election in a pretty large margin, the largest since 2008 Obama's landslide. So now we're going to actually be taking a look at the Senate now, because we have now confirmed that we do think that Biden will win the presidency. What about the Senate? Let's take a look at that. Let's look at all our predictions that we had. For this, we are going to give Montana to the Republicans because we are seeing Daines catching speed a bit, doing a little bit better than we kind of expected from last time. And that's kind of why we do believe that although Steve Daines does pick up the win in Montana, you're going to see right now a lot of other states are still going to the Democrats enough for them to have a majority. As I said, Arizona, I'll put it as lean right now, but it's very close to being a safe state. So let's finish plotting this out. Alabama, yes, the Democrats will lose this seat here, but they are picking up a lot everywhere else. Ethan, you want to talk a little bit more about the Senate?
Sure. The problem that we see on the presidential race for the Republicans at this time seems to be mirrored very closely when we look at some of the polls surrounding the Senate elections. There are a lot of races this year that are a lot closer than they should be, and that is something that should be a warning sign for Republicans at this time. We look at Montana, which is one of the reddest states in the country. Steve Bullock, popular governor, is running there, and he's making the state a lot closer than it probably would have been if he hadn't run. South Carolina, between Lindsey Graham and Ben Harrison, who we are seeing is picking up a lot of ground in more recent polls, despite the fact that South Carolina is very red. A similar story in Kentucky with the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. He seems to be struggling a little bit against Amy McGrath, and it is also a very red state. So we see a lot of these red states that really shouldn't be close, but they are a lot closer than we would have expected prior to election season. And now that they are, it's definitely going to be hurting Republican morale a lot when we see these very red states become competitive.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you do mean that you mean Jamie Harrison in South Carolina, right? Not Ben Harrison.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I agree with you because some of these races that are not supposed to be competitive are competitive now. This could pose an issue to like when the Republicans are spending money on some of these races. They're spending money on races that should not be competitive in the first place. South Carolina, Kentucky, we're seeing a lot of ads on YouTube from people. People are telling us that they're getting a lot of ads from these races that shouldn't be competitive. And the thing is, they're spending money on these states, and they're not spending more of their money on other states they should focus on. Like maybe they're not spending as much money as they could have in a state like North Carolina or a state like Arizona or a state like Colorado. So essentially, what I'm saying is these states are now going to be very hard to get back by the Republicans. And by get back, I mean not like pick up because they're on defense right now, but they need to, because support right now is looking a lot favorable for the Democrats, Arizona, Colorado, North Carolina, Maine. Republicans are on defense, and it's going to be very hard for them to change that momentum towards that direction. Although we are at a 50-50 tie, what happens here? What happens is Joe Biden, who we said that will be the next president of the United States, his vice president breaks this tie, which at the moment is looking like it's going to be Kamala Harris. But whoever his vice president is, they are going to break the tie in the Senate. So Democrats effectively do have a majority right now in the Senate. We're going to head down to the House races. Ethan, how about you explain this one?
Sure. So, of course, we currently see the House having a fairly narrow majority for the Democrats, but it is a majority where they have 232 seats to the Republicans' 198. Earlier on in the campaign, it did look like there was a chance that Republicans could pick up enough seats to plausibly flip the House back in their favor, but we are seeing a lot of very enlightening polls, specifically on the generic ballot, which measures how the average congressional candidate of both parties are performing. And these generic ballot polls are telling us that Democrats, on average, their congressional candidates are doing almost 11 points better than Republicans are. In the 2018 congressional races, Democrats did an average of 7 to 8 points better than Republicans did. And that on its own was enough to give them a majority of 232 seats. So although Republicans are aiming to pick up some seats here, potentially enough to flip the House, if they're 11 points behind in a lot of these polls, it's going to be very difficult for them to flip more marginal seats that would traditionally be competitive in an election season.
They picked up 41 seats in 2018. That's huge. Now, I don't think we're going to see that high of a margin this year, obviously, because in 2018, there was a large number of House Republicans that did retire. We're not seeing as staggering numbers as we saw before, but we could potentially see maybe single-digit pickups for the Democrats. What do you think about that, Ethan?
It's definitely difficult to say because, as we were saying before, there is a lot of thinking among Republicans that they could pick up some seats. But I do think that it is definitely a possibility that Democrats have some minor pickups in certain states. And yes, just because of the polls, how favorable these surveys are looking towards Democrats at this time. Because personally, if Democrats are doing on average double digits higher than Republican candidates are, I don't see how Republicans are going to pick up anywhere near enough seats to flip back the House.
I agree with that. I don't think the Democrats will pick up enough. I don't think the Republicans will pick up enough seats to win back the majority. And for that reason, we are going to say that it is very likely at the moment that the Democrats will retain control of the United States House. Now let's head to the final part. I pulled up Joe Biden's platform here just to kind of to look at what could happen under a Democratic trifecta. And I think I'll probably start off with the first biggest thing, and that is DC statehood. DC statehood would be huge. Now, a lot of Democrats do support this. If DC became a state, they'd get 2 senators and 1 member of the House of Representatives. And because of how solidly and reliably blue DC is, it's highly expected that all 3 seats become Democratic seats. And the Republicans don't want that. And a lot of Republicans are opposed to it. Now, what do they need to do to make DC a state? In the Senate, first of all, they have to get rid of the filibuster if they want that to happen. And personally, I don't think that it will pass. Although they do have technically a majority in the Senate to get rid of the filibuster, I feel like some of those more moderate Democrats might not support this idea. Like I'm talking about like Joe Manchin, who is a very conservative Democrat. But Ethan did make a good point before we recorded this video that some of those Republicans are anti-filibuster as well. So we could see some Republicans voting in favor to get rid of the filibuster. And now there's the second portion here. The second portion is they need to then get a majority of senators to pass this legislation to make DC a state in the Senate. So let's back up a bit. The DC bill has already passed through the House. It probably will die, but we could see it be reintroduced again. Democrats do still have a majority in the House, so we do think that will easily go through there. Now the Senate. Here's the problem in the Senate. As I said earlier, yes, they have a 50-50 majority, but there's a lot, I don't want to say a lot, but there is a couple of Democratic senators that are opposed to this idea. You have both senators right now, I believe in Rhode Island, that are opposed to it, and Joe Manchin's against it. So is Senator Angus King in Maine, I believe. So it just doesn't seem likely to me that DC can become a state even under a Democrat trifecta. Does anyone want to add anything to that?
I also think that not only are we going to see a important battle over the future of DC as a potential state in both the House and the Senate, as Lucas noted, but we also look at a lot of the other things that Democrats have not only been aiming to pass, but also have been aiming to undo, essentially things that Trump has done under his tenure. Because although, yes, Democrats, it's very unlikely that they're going to be able to get rid of the filibuster unless very specific circumstances are in place, there's still a lot of legislation that Trump has passed in his first term that could necessarily be subject to change under the chances that Democrats take back the Senate. Because if Democrats have a majority in the Senate, then a lot of these sweeping immigration reforms and agricultural reforms that Trump has passed in his administration could potentially be at risk. And that's obviously something that Democrats are very eager to undo.
I agree with that. Eric, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and also adding on to Ethan's point about undoing undoing what has been done under Donald Trump's administration, the economy can also bounce back. We kind of see a pattern with this. In 1992, the economy was better under Bill Clinton, and there were also other circumstances. So maybe in 2020, under the Biden administration, the economy could bounce back and get better.
It's definitely possible. What else does Joe Biden want? We could also see an expansion to the affirmative action, the Obamacare Act, the Affordable Care Act. Joe Biden has been pushing for a public option. Do you guys think that will be possible under a Democratic-led trifecta?
So obviously, Democrats, in the case of a trifecta, do have a very good chance of passing the public option proposal, because we look at the two halves of the Democratic Party, the more progressive side and the more moderate side. Both sides are very likely to support a public option proposal. Even Democrats that may want something even more extensive than a public option proposal are likely to support it, because they understand that the alternative is slashing subsidies to the Affordable Care Act, which is what we've seen under Trump's administration. As for Republicans, we can also note the fact that a public option is still very, very popular among American citizens. American citizens really want some kind of reform to the current Medicaid system. So it is very possible that, given these trends with the public, more moderate Republicans could be inclined to vote for the public option. So in my opinion, with a Democratic trifecta, it is very, very likely that a public option could pass through both halves of Congress.
Very interesting. And I think a final point that we could talk about is the Supreme Court. Ruth Bader Ginsburg does look like she may retire, or may not have the seat anymore very soon. We could see Biden, who did pledge to appoint the first Black woman on the court. So right now the court is a 5-4 conservative lean. Ginsburg is one of the more liberal justices on there. So under a Trump administration, if Trump does get reelected, we could see Ginsburg being replaced by a conservative. That would swing the court 6-4. 6-3. But now if Biden does become president, he could continue to hold that seat as a liberal seat. We could see other retirements in the House, in the Supreme Court as well. So maybe we could see the court maybe swing liberal in the next few years. Eric, you wanna, or one of you, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Ruth Bader Ginsburg kind of must maintain the seat until Joe Biden will likely get elected. Because as Lucas said, under his administration, he would elect more judges that swing more to the left and could possibly flip the majority from a Republican majority in the Supreme Court to a Democratic majority, and the Democrats would be really happy about that, because not only is there a Democratic trifecta in the presidential race and the Senate race and the House race, and then also the Supreme Court would be flipped under Biden's administration. And then all three branches of government, the executive, legislative, and judicial branches, would all be under the Democrats.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. So big idea here. If the government does become a trifecta, Democratic trifecta in 2021, which it does look like we are projecting that to happen, we could see huge changes to the nation from these past 4 years under President Trump. And that's the end of the episode for today. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this episode, please hit the like button. If you like our content, or if you like Ethan's content too, go to his channel. I'll leave a link in the description. Go there, subscribe to his channel as well. Ethan, you have anything else to say?
Thanks to everybody for watching this video, and go watch other videos on Red Donkey's channel.
And your channel too. We'll see you in our next episode tomorrow.
See ya.